Manually.
Go check the arm. Go check the arm. Go check the lot.
I talked to Lori yesterday.
It's not like them to be late.
No.
They might be running a little bit late. Well,
It appears that way, Tim.
Yes.
Okay, do you guys, would you like to take up, I think we have H2.
Yes. Lori. We're going to pick up H2. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Anderson Planning and Building Services. The subject today is the reorganization of the Planning and Building Services Department. The action request is to establish budget-funded positions of an associate position and an assistant planner position, and defund budgeted position of a planning technician. Authorize the county auditor to make the necessary adjustments to the fiscal year 2014. So in my board letter, I articulate the current situation. We were without any planning staff other than Galen and myself, and that's due to a perfect storm of people leaving to other positions. But we were at a point where it wasn't working anyway. And what we tried to do the last go around is we had a senior position, and we tried to create a technician that shared some secretarial duties as well as planning duties. And ultimately, given the workload that we have now, that just wasn't going to be sufficient. And so, unfortunately, the perfect storm was coming to that realization as Thomas Minoli, Jamie Smith, and Kelly Mumper all decided to take positions elsewhere at the same time. So, in a way, it's a good time to reassess and look at our needs, and I've articulated them in this memo. I think what it takes to get the job done currently is a senior planner, of which we've done 2 recruitments now that have not resulted in viable candidates. We're recruiting for a 3rd time currently. We're taking a different avenue, looking at some other places to advertise, and hopefully we'll have a pool of people to look at here in the near future. But to make the engine work, I really feel that we're in a position now where we need an associate level person and an assistant person working the counter. Counter's picked up. It's I think the statistic was up 28%. We're noticing that uptick, and you know, historically the junior planners are really the workforce behind the counter, and even though they're planners, they really play a large role in the building permit process. I mean, it takes a planner to facilitate and to usher through a building permit application, and that's been pretty active at the counter, and as well, just the variety of things. I was in here in April with our planning department update, which Supervisor Hammond asked for, and we did provide that information, and a portion of that is in your staff report today of all the things to do. And we're just at a point where it's just not working with what we have, and we need to address it. You know, and I'm sensitive, and I haven't been in here asking for people. You know, we cut ourselves to the quick in 2008, and that was the right thing to do. I mean, essentially everything stopped. And now the right thing to do is address the uptick and the activity that we're having and the long list of things that the board has directed us to do. So I generalized. What this means fiscally for this budget year is nothing. In fact, because of all the open positions, we're probably going to have a lot of savings there. But ultimately, over time, it would be about a $75,000 increase to the planning budget. So that's my request. I want to be in a position to be successful for you.
Okay. Boy, does that leave some open shots. What does successful for us mean, Mark?
You asked a lot of this department, and we are, we do the lion's share. We're here every Tuesday. We're the people that bring these things to your attention, these projects, these issues, and that's the everyday stuff. Galen and I have been coming in on weekends. We've got 2 subdivisions. We've got Honey Lake Power. We've got a lot of projects, and it's just not going to work with 2 people. So.
You need help.
You've been talking to my therapist.
So Maury, on the page 1, those 2, you list the 87, 871, and then compared to the 52,201. So is that for the same time period up till?
Well, no, we're not even done with this fiscal year, actually. So no, I think, since the sprinkler thing, everybody was nobody's building houses, and it does seem like we've had, I think, 6 this year, and people are sort of getting over the issue. It's a couple $1,000s. Everybody's still got heartburn about it because it doesn't make sense for us. But I think that is diminishing as a reason not to build a home, and together with the uptick in permanent activity in general, I think people are building homes now. And
Begs a question, Maury. Is something like this here with the sprinkler thing? Is that something we could do like with what the Fish and Game Commission did earlier?
Geez, that's a good question. I don't think so because it had everybody talking. Every land use attorney in the world was involved when that first started happening. So I think if there was an avenue to do that, it would be done. But I didn't see that coming either. I didn't know that was. That would be a bill. That would be something that there's no path that exists, but can something be changed? Certainly.
Well, it was not legislatively created. It was created by an administrative bureaucracy that has independence, and where they get you is through the insurance sanctions and through the banking financing sanctions. And so the legislature could pass all the reforms they want to, but unless that administrative bureaucracy backs off and basically, if you don't follow their dictates with the building codes, the banks aren't going to give you the money, and the insurance companies aren't going to insure the property, and you're sitting out there stuck. So that's how they played that game.
And when you ask the people that are closer to it, they say it's not coming back. They base that on the people that are responsible for it occurring are not likely to be changing anytime soon. So.
And then what about, with the reduction of staff, there's been a few things that we've farmed out over the past few years. Would some of that stuff be coming back in-house with this?
We haven't farmed out a great deal.
Well, maybe can you tell us, just refresh our memory what we've farmed out?
Well, we've gone through a transition in the building department where we didn't have anybody qualified to really look at engineering. And we are now in a position where our building official can do life safety stuff. He's certified plan check examiner now.
Who's that?
Jim David. And so he's been, and he's in the last 2 years become a certified building official. And so we are doing in-house plan checks on a lot of simple things. And that's a departure from when everything was going out to Wilden, who is our consultant that does reviews our engineering, our plan check.
In Plymouth?
Wilden is located in Sacramento and LA.
Okay. So that's still going to carry.
They're going to be anything that is, engineering beyond our expertise.
I remember the first thing we farmed out was we were farming out to Plymouth County.
We have a relationship with them, and we can. We don't very frequently do that because they're having some staffing issues of their own. But turnaround with Wilden is generally within 2 weeks, so we're real pleased with what we're doing with them. But yeah, we were doing both for a while.
Yeah. And what was Plymouth doing plan checks on?
Well, in the beginning, they were the first thing that we went to, and they were doing everything, and then we ultimately went to Wilden.
So is any of the stuff that we're sending to Plymouth, is any of it going to be brought back here?
Well, I don't think we're sending very little, if anything, to Plymouth County.
It's all going to the...
Wilden, or it's in-house.
Okay.
But like I said, a lot of the in-house stuff that we can do now would have been stuff that we would have sent to Plymouth County.
What kind of turnaround is there now on a plan check?
Generally, it's under 2 weeks.
You,
So it'll be 48 hours, 2 more guys.
Oh, for you? For you? I know. We have Wildan's phenomenal, and it's not to say there hasn't been some snafus. You know, if people don't have all the information, then it goes off to them, and it comes back 2 weeks later saying you didn't have all the information, and all bets are off. But generally, we're pretty good at knowing what needs to be in a packet, and generally speaking, it's under 2 weeks.
Now, how does these new positions fit into the new software that we bought?
Well, it's both tragic and good timing. We're just now kicking off the implementation of the Paladin software, and so hopefully these people will be on the ground floor of that instruction. And to understand also that for a professional series planner, the learning curve is steep and long. To get an assistant up and running and almost to the associate level is really a 2-year process at least. And that's if they get it. And that's why getting a senior planner has been a real challenge, to find somebody with that competency level, familiar with CEQA and initial study process, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's a dying art or it's a combination of our relatively low wages compared to other jurisdictions, but we're just not getting, you put a flyer out there, you expect to get applicants, but we really are not getting them. So we're trying a different strategy, trying to look in different places for somebody that, not just looking at a wage, wants to be in a community that's as excellent as ours, and hopefully we'll have a different outcome. But anyway, a long way to go to say, I think it's good timing with our software, provided we get some people relatively soon.
Any other questions? Supervisor Chapman?
I just have a question. It's for Mr. Egan. Are we going to cherry pick department by department, or are we going to have a coordinated strategy for restructuring and rebounding from the staffing cutbacks due to the recession and funding issues of a few years back? I mean, across the board, we strategically curtailed in certain areas in reaction to the economic downturn that affected the tax revenues, and obviously now things are starting to ramp back up. People are being more. I mean, I'm not saying that this particular department can learn to. But I would be interested in knowing what your thoughts are in terms of the broader vision of how we're going to have we have roughly 430 employees now. Are we going to have a mean workforce of 375, or are we going to have a mean workforce of 450? I mean, where are we going to go over the next 2 to 5 years in terms of putting our emphasis and allocation of resources to achieve strategic goals rather than just hit this department by department?
I'll perceive that as somewhat of a rhetorical question.
No, it's not rhetorical. It's problematic, I think, in terms. I mean, I'm interested in that because how I vote on this question is really going to depend a lot upon that answer. Because I'm interested in seeing us having a strategic plan rather than just reacting to situation.
Well, in the case of, I guess I'll address the current case first, and then the overall case. But in the case of the planning and building division, the department drastically reduced in the downturn of the housing economy and subsequently the building and planning and all their activities were significantly reduced, as was their staff. Now, other parts of the county, social services, and so on saw the opposite effect because of the need that was there. Now, as we move forward, I anticipate, and I think the evidence suggests that it's correct, that we're starting to see an uptick in building activity and demand for planning and building services, and I think we need to direct more resources there in that direction in an organized, thoughtful fashion. Having said that, we don't know exactly how rapid or slow that rebound will be, but it seems to be pretty dramatic in the last 6 months or so. I don't think we want to go out and increase the department to the level that it was in 2007 or 8 right away, but I think we need to be prepared if we do see a dramatic shift that we need to allocate more resources there. This isn't a haphazard reorganization or request from the planning department. We've had many discussions about this. We don't, the director and I take seriously recruiting and filling professional positions because, quite simply, these are people that you don't want to just recruit, hire, train, and not need their services and turn them loose, because they're very difficult to recruit, they're expensive to train, and if we go to that effort, we want to make sure that we have a job for them to do when they're trained. And so, the short answer to your question is that yes, we're going to do it in an organized and thoughtful fashion, and not cherry-pick departments. There are obviously a variety of funding streams depending on which department we're talking about. Planning and buildings a general fund department, which makes it one of the more difficult to fund. But I think it's important that we be prepared to react to our constituents and provide those services that are needed. So, does that answer your question?
It does, in a good way. I mean, I probably would prefer a little different answer, but I think you're being honest about it. I mean, less than 3 months ago, we were dealing with funding the budget, and we had requests from the assessor, we had requests from the DA's office. We've heard recently issues concerning the county clerk's office in terms of staffing adequacies, having sufficient staff. And so I think, across the board, within the general fund, but also in the various departmental budgets, the issue of staffing and needing more resources, more staffing has been a fairly consistent pattern. So I really think it's important that maybe over the next few months, if it's possible for your office to generate kind of like what we can expect and where the priorities are going to be lying, and give the board an opportunity maybe to weigh in on the policy ramifications of how resources will be allocated and where the emphasis will be made. I mean, obviously this is going to be the first of many, and experience has taught me clearly that when domino falls, believe me, there will be a whole cascade of dominoes coming at you and at the board. So,
if I could just add, I think, and certainly as we've looked at this issue, more resources doesn't necessarily mean more bodies in a lot of these departments. And in the case of planning, we've added the permit tracking system in an effort to try to do things more efficiently with less people. And I think that's the first place we need to look when we look at these departments, is becoming more efficient before adding bodies. In this case, we've done that, and the department is pretty lean and mean, to use your terms, but there is a certain need for professionals to shepherd these projects through. And I agree with the recommendation of the director.
Maury and I have a different definition of what lean means, and I'm sure there are people in the community, maybe even in the audience, who have a different perspective about what is a mean department and what is not a mean department. So we'll leave it at that.
Maury, how many employees do you have in there now?
All divisions, I think 13. I think the high of the department maybe in the 2005 era was close to 30. Between 13 and 15, I consider it count my hands, but don't make me embarrassed. And remember too that we're talking about employees, and in the flow chart of where these positions are, we're not creating positions. These are all unfunded positions, so we're not, that's why I don't have a bunch of complicated paperwork for you. We're not trying to create things. We're just trying to fund some positions that exist.
But they're already funded.
They're not funded. They're not. They have position control numbers. They exist. They existed in the past. But when we started, coming back in 2008, I think the popular wisdom was, let's not just get rid of the positions, because we don't see this being a permanent situation, but we have to reflect what's happening. And so they unfunded the position, kept the position control members and the title of the positions.
But to add to that, for the purpose of this fiscal year, because of the vacancies that exist, there won't be any budgetary impact.
That's my next question.
One of the vacancies, being like Thomas.
Thomas is an this doesn't, this contemplates us filling that. This is a position that we have that we've unfortunately not been able to fill, but are hopeful to. This is in addition to that.
Right. So so in the budget we passed, Richard, so these positions were not funded? Or
Correct.
Not
They were not funded.
We funded a technician level,
Yeah.
which this is proposing to defund that and put that money towards one of the assistant level jobs.
But because like of Thomas's, departure and all that, there's still part of unused money.
Oh, this year will be fine, but there is a cost.
And if I could direct you to the fiscal impact part
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's part of the staff report. It kind of goes through that.
Ends up costing like 70-something odd thousand.
Yeah, once we were fully,
75 for.
But this year, nothing.
right.
That is, but I think that is the important number, is the ongoing.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Any other questions before we go to public comment?
So, right now, you and Galen are the only two for us. Put together, if somebody comes in and needs a building permit,
That's me.
that's what you,
That's Galen.
yeah.
Answer the zoning line. That's me. That's Galen. Work on subdivision. That's me. That's Galen. I'm not even going to tell you about the request for the bathrooms when they're dirty. That's me. That's Galen.
Can't blame it on anybody else.
Sounded better all the time.
Larry wants me to do some of the landscaping around here, but that's really low on the list.
That's good.
Or Galen. That's Galen. That's Galen.
I don't
not here,
have any
actually.
issue. I would support it.
Okay, so how's this going to improve this department?
We'll actually be able to do things on time. That's the start. I know. Listen, we've held it together, and the Honey Lake Power use permit for the solar facility, we did it on time, but it took us coming in on weekends. It's working on subdivisions on weekends, and we don't mind doing that, getting us through a crisis, but that's not optimal. It's not how it should be. We need to get to the right amount of resources through the objectives. And that's how you'll have customer satisfaction. I mean, nobody's ever going to like going through an environmental process, Mr. Hammond. But
I will know.
But doing it in short order is a big difference. So.
Should we go to any public comment on this agenda item? Public likes you.
Thank you,
Okay. So we'll bring it back to with the pleasure of the board.
I'd make a motion to support reorganization for planning and building services.
Second. Any more discussion?
Poll vote, please, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Chapman?
No.
Supervisor Alba?
Yes.
Supervisor Kyle?
All right.
Supervisor Hammond?
No.
Supervisor Watson?
Aye.
Does this require a full
That's
fiscal
what we're
year?
doing.
Not an increase to the appropriation. It is simply a changing of positions that the already approved appropriation funds.
With appropriation, you're not going to spend more money?
No. not this fiscal year.
Not this fiscal year, next year it'll be a $75,000
Well, I think that the vote's the vote, but I think the planning department, has heard a strong message that
We can take it back.
result driven, yeah.
I'll consult with the planning division because as I suggested, the cost and the time required to recruit, fill, and train these positions, if it's a very
What kind of response are you
Tenuous.
going to get on these, Maury? I'm a
You
little
know,
skeptical about the
it's hard to
responses.
know. The senior position requires so much more knowledge than the junior positions.
Yeah.
Sometimes the junior position is attractive for people because they're getting in a professional, serious level job, and so that interests them. And they have somewhere to go from assistant to associate. And just finding a senior planner that's been there, done that, knows everything, that's a lot more challenging.
And as far as comparative salaries, how do we rank?
Not good.
low to very
That's
low.
what I was afraid.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could, and we've got 6 months until the next budget basically would be put together, which would be where you'd be having to fund the extra $75,000. But maybe in the meantime, Mr. Egan's office can kind of look at a staffing analysis across the general departments in terms of where the competitive needs and demands are, and maybe developing some rationale as to why, this position here that's processing application versus maybe this position here that's generating income or doing whatever, stamp crunching and mutilating forms or whatever the job may be, in terms of priority, and how not only the needs of this department are going to be adequately taken care of, but the needs of some of the other departments that are also looking for staffing help. And I think it needs to be a bigger part of the picture, so that'll give us 6 months to maybe develop a better appreciation, and maybe we can fund a lot of needs.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Moving that along. It still goes in the W column.
Sometimes they're hard to get, Maury.
You might win the battle, but remember, you gotta win the war.
Peace and love, peace and love.
All right, so that was a drama-filled. Okay, we'll move on to our. And I apologize. We figured you were running a little bit late, so we took up another item. So we'll move on to your item D1.
Mr. Ham, did you
Yeah,
want to introduce?
I asked Lieutenant Colonel Lassen and Mr. Olson and Mr. McDonald to give us a presentation about what they're doing out there, and the impact the Sierra Army Depot has on Lassen County is huge. And to keep you guys up in the front, to keep the population thinking about you guys, I appreciate you coming and making this presentation.
Sure.
Well, we're going to have to ask all the audience to leave because we're going to go into some sensitive topics.
Boy, we got all excited. Nobody ran for the door.
Okay, so the first thing we'll address is the underground hangar expansion that we've got out there. Let me at least just come around there. Don't break the ice. I thought I just screwed up the picture. All right, you doing? I'm going to hop up here. See you guys. Pleasure. Pleasure. I didn't drop it.
Colonel did it.
Blame me. And ma'am, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, I know Tom has been out there. Who's been out there? But I don't know who else has been out there.
We've had previous tours.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been about a year and a half maybe last time we were out there.
Okay.
But we want to come out again.
Come on out. We have a short bus we can put you guys on, and
I want to bring my Rotary Club guys too, because I tell them that you guys have the biggest business in Lassen County and they need to see it.
okay.
I might have been interested in taking the invitation, but